In this video I'm going to show and demonstrate the equipment that I've used to set up a paint booth in my garage to paint an experimental aircraft, a little turbine-powered helicopter. I'll give a description of some of the equipment that I'm using and show some of the processes. First of all, since I'm outside, I'll go from the outside and work my way in. I have a fresh air breathing supply, which is a breathe cool device that pumps air through a hose to a mask to make sure that you're breathing clean air. I'll turn it on now so that we can see how it works inside. Now we'll move to the inside of the garage. This is the quintessential garage paint job, and in order to make a paint booth, I purchased a Urmax canopy device and turned it into a paint booth. It happens to have a window on the side that is just the right size for the use of a couple of furnace filters, which are rather unsightly attached to the outside with duct tape and masking tape. The blue masking tape was some stuff that was sitting around the garage, and it's apparently lost some of its stick, so I had to use some duct tape to make it work. Those are 1-inch thick filters, and this is the second time I've painted in this paint booth arrangement. The first time I used 4-inch thick filters that I had from my furnace system here in my home, and the 4-inch filters are much better. They'll pass a lot more air, resulting in a lower differential pressure between the inside and the outside. The higher differential causes quite a bit of movement of the walls of the canopy to the inside. Okay, so now it's windy and cool here today, so I'm going to shut this garage door and I'll open up the paint booth. So there's two hoses you'll see. One right there is the fresh air hose. There's actually three. The compressed air hose is the orangish rust-colored hose, and that's a vacuum hose that I use to clean up, and I'll demonstrate how I use that here in just a minute. Okay, so here we are inside the paint booth. And I'll try to situate things so you can be pretty much everything can be seen. Well, first of all, you'll note that there's a bright yellow line going around the top of the canopy sidewalls. That's actually masking tape. That's part of this 3M masking film, and this works really well to line the inside of the paint booth so that you don't end up making the tint multicolored and dirty and ugly. A couple of other things that I have inside here. Well, first of all, lighting. Lighting is really important. The more you have, the better. These are a couple of LED work lights, and that I've used some number 12 copper wire to suspend from the framework of the tent. And if I were setting up again to do some painting, or if I were going to maybe do another aircraft, I think I would buy 2 more of these and put 4, one from each direction. That way there'd be less shadowing, and it makes visualizing the coatings a little bit better. Cleanliness is next to godliness in terms of painting, and when you spray, you inevitably get a lot of overspray, or some overspray. The spray system that I'm using is a 3M product, and it's a high volume, low pressure paint system, and I'll demonstrate that either later in this video or perhaps in another. So you can see where the air would come into the tent. Most of the air, I should say, comes through the filters. This 3M visqueen film is pulled down around the bottom of the tent. It extends out on the floor, and then I set 2x4s along the edge to kind of seal it. Even better might be to actually tape it to the floor, as I've done with the visqueen that covers my garage floor. This is 6 mil polyethylene sheeting. I wouldn't use anything less than 6 mil because 4 mil and less is very likely to want to get sucked into the vacuum that you do need to clean with some regularity, because you end up with so much, at least I have, so much spray dust. Now, caveat here is I'm not a professional painter. I've had some training in it in manufacturing engineering school, but mostly I'm self-taught, and I've relied upon other YouTube videos and the advice of friends who are more experienced and friends who are actually professional painters in the automotive refinishing business. So you need a fan to suck the clean air in and blow out the bad air. And what I did was, some time ago I remodeled my kitchen, and I retained the blower from the kitchen hood, and specifically for this purpose, and with a little bit of cardboard and duct tape you can seal it up pretty good. So that's the source of the suction. And I just put together some flexible aluminum duct, and it just runs outside and extends about 6 or 8 feet out of the garage to keep the overspray away from things that I don't want it to get on. Okay, one of the things that you do notice, that I have noticed in painting in here, is that the fine particles of paint will adhere to the plastic sheeting. And they would the plastic or the fabric walls of the tent too, which is the reason I use the sheeting. And what I do is, whenever there's a change in paint, or if I'm using a particular product for quite a few spray sessions, then periodically in the process I'll stop and I'll clean up the paint booth. And if you look down in the corner, you can see quite distinctly a rectangle that is darker, that is sort of black in color, goes there and over there. Well, that's an area that I haven't vacuumed. The paint booth is prepped now for the next color of paint. The last color was black. Later today I'll be painting yellow polyurethane, and so I left a little bit to just do a little demonstration of how it works. And you can also see I left a corresponding stripe going up the walls that haven't been brushed. So I take this old fine horsehair brush, and you can see the areas right here where the paint overspray is collected, and it's just dust at this point. And I just sweep it down to the bottom. I'll usually do about half the height at once, the height of the wall, then I'll go the rest of the way to the floor. And that pretty much drops it right down next to the edge of the walls. The rest of the canopy has already been done, so I just left this corner for demonstration purposes. Okay, so now that that's done, I take the vacuum, fire it up. And that's basically the process. I also clean the hoses up, sort of on the same schedule. And the hoses really do get quite dirty. The air hose I usually set up to leave it around the outside edge, ready for the next connection of the gun. This is the compressed air hose. And the breathing air hose, I do the same. I usually put it on the inside because it's the first thing I'll connect up when I come in to actually paint. It always gets twisted up as I move around to get to all the angles to get the paint applied the way I want. So between each part, or certainly between each different paint coating, I will clean things up, wipe the hoses down, and straighten things out. The hoses get very dirty too. This is a little airflow gauge that determines if you've got adequate air for safety-wise. And with this particular product that I'm using, they make a half mask and they make a full hood, and depending on whether you're using the half mask or the hood, you want at least 4 cubic feet per minute for the full or half face mask and 6 CFM for the hood. So I always check this once I've started the little air pump up to make sure that I've got adequate airflow to make sure that I'll be safe given the toxicity of the epoxies, particularly the polyurethanes, which this is. This was yesterday's black, and what remained is kicked into a solid at the end. So that's basically the paint booth. Oh, one other thing is I take a chunk of cardboard. And I tape some masking paper on it, and then I fold it into a 90-degree bend there so that I can stick it in the corner. That keeps it standing upright, and then I use it to test and adjust the gun with each stint of painting. So that is the poor man's garage paint booth that works pretty well. I've had really good success with the painting, and by being careful about tacking the parts down before I paint. I've had really no significant issues with even nibs or bits of dust and debris. It's all a function of how much time and energy you put into keeping things clean. So next video I'll show you the paint components that I'm actually using.